Commander Jack Morrison stood at the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, his eyes fixed on the massive structure growing larger as they approached. Harmony 7 was an engineering marvel, a sprawling space station that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Alliance. The metallic structure gleamed against the backdrop of stars, its rotating sections creating artificial gravity for the various alien species that called it home. "First time seeing it up close?" Lieutenant Olivia Wright asked, coming to stand beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her blue eyes reflected the distant lights of the station. Jack nodded. "I've studied the technical specifications, but this is something else. Though I'm already spotting some design choices I wouldn't have made." "Always the engineer," Olivia said with a smile. "Try to enjoy the view for once without analyzing everything." 6 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Galactic Alliance, a coalition of 27 spacefaring species. Earth had been classified as a death world due to its high gravity, atmospheric composition, and the dangerous flora and fauna that humans had evolved alongside. This classification had earned humans both fear and respect from the various Alliance species. Dr. Nathan Parker joined them at the viewport, his tablet clutched in his hands. As the team's xenobiologist, he had spent months studying the different Alliance species. "Remember the briefing," he warned quietly. "Most of these species evolved on worlds with lower gravity and fewer environmental hazards than Earth. They find us intimidating." Jack sighed. "We're engineers and scientists, not soldiers. We're here to help." "Tell that to the Keldorians," Olivia replied. "They've been pushing for restrictions on human movement throughout Alliance space since first contact." The shuttle docked with a gentle shudder. As the airlock cycled, Jack straightened his uniform and looked at his small team. Besides Olivia and Nathan, there were 4 other human specialists chosen for this first official delegation to discuss Earth's potential membership in the Alliance. "Remember," Jack said to them, "we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good impression." The airlock doors slid open, revealing a reception committee of various alien species. Jack immediately noticed they were keeping their distance, and several wore what appeared to be protective gear. A tall, willowy alien with blue-tinged skin stepped forward, though still maintaining a careful distance. "Welcome to Harmony 7. I'm High Counselor Zixthera," the alien said, its translator converting the series of clicks and whistles into English. "We hope your journey was comfortable." Jack stepped forward and gave a slight bow, remembering the cultural briefing. "High Counselor, thank you for your welcome. I am Commander Jack Morrison, lead engineer and representative of Earth. We are honored to be here." The tour of the station was conducted with obvious caution. The Alliance representatives kept a minimum distance of 3 meters from the humans at all times. Jack noticed how conversations quieted when they entered rooms, how eyes followed them with mixture of curiosity and fear. During the tour, Jack's engineering mind was constantly at work. He noticed power fluctuations in the lighting systems, slight variations in the air circulation, and small tremors in the deck plating that spoke of alignment issues in the station's rotational systems. When they reached the main engineering section, Jack couldn't keep quiet any longer. He approached one of the display terminals, careful not to get too close to the Voltraxian engineer operating it. "Excuse me," Jack said politely, "but I'm noticing some irregularities in your power distribution network. The fluctuations suggest potential overload in the secondary cooling systems." The Voltraxian engineer looked startled, its 6 eyes blinking rapidly. "Our systems are operating within normal parameters," it replied stiffly. "With respect," Jack persisted, pointing to the scrolling data. "These reading patterns indicate progressive destabilization. On Earth, this would trigger immediate maintenance protocols." High Counselor Zixthera intervened smoothly. "Commander Morrison, while we appreciate your human perspective, our engineers are quite capable of maintaining our station." Jack wanted to argue but felt Olivia's warning hand on his arm. He nodded and stepped back but exchanged a concerned glance with Nathan. The diplomatic meetings dragged on for hours. The Alliance representatives asked numerous questions about Earth, its resources, and its military capabilities, while providing little information about their own worlds or technologies. Jack noticed the underlying tension in every conversation, the implicit assumption that humans were dangerous. That night, in their assigned quarters, Jack called his team together. "Something's wrong with this station's power systems," he said without preamble. "Those fluctuations are getting worse. I monitored them throughout the day." "I noticed it too," Olivia agreed. "The lights in the east quadrant dimmed 3 times during the afternoon session." Nathan frowned. "Do you think it's serious?" "Potentially. Catastrophic," Jack replied. "The pattern suggests a cascade failure in the making. If the coolant systems fail, the reactor could go critical. So what do we do?" one of the other engineers asked. "They clearly don't want our help." Jack paced the room. "I tried the diplomatic approach. They shut me down. But there are thousands of lives on this station, including our own. I'm not going to sit back and watch a preventable disaster unfold because of pride or prejudice." "What are you suggesting?" Olivia asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. "We need to access the main engineering deck," Jack said firmly. "If I can get a closer look at their systems, maybe implement a temporary fix, we can prevent a disaster and prove our value to the Alliance." "That's risky," Nathan warned. "Unauthorized access to their critical systems could be seen as sabotage or espionage." "I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission when lives are at stake," Jack replied. "I'm not ordering anyone to come with me. This is volunteer only." Olivia stood immediately. "I'm in. You'll need security backup if we're caught. I'll..." "Come too," Nathan said. "My diplomatic credentials might help if we're confronted." 2 hours later, the 3 humans made their way through the quieter night cycle corridors of Harmony 7. Jack had studied the station schematics provided in their welcome package and identified a maintenance access point near their quarters. They reached the access panel without incident. Jack quickly bypassed the simple security system, noting with professional disappointment how rudimentary it was compared to Earth standards. "They really don't expect anyone to try this," he muttered as the panel slid open. The maintenance shaft was cramped but navigable. They moved carefully through the network of tunnels until they reached a junction box near the main engineering deck. Jack pulled out a diagnostic tool he had brought from Earth and began scanning the power conduits. "Just as I thought," he said grimly. "The coolant circulation is failing and nobody's noticed because their sensors are calibrated wrong. This whole section could overheat within days." "Can you fix it?" Olivia asked, keeping watch at the tunnel intersection. "I think so, but I'll need direct access to the main control systems," Jack replied. They were about to proceed when a harsh alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the maintenance tunnel. "Intruder alert. Security breach." "In Section 17, announced a computerized voice. "They've detected us," Olivia said, drawing the small defensive shock baton she carried. "What now?" Before Jack could answer, the tunnel was flooded with armored security officers. The Keldorian security chief, Captain Vrelnok, stepped forward, his reptilian features set in a harsh expression. "Humans," he hissed through his translator. "You are under arrest for sabotage and attempted terrorism against the Galactic Alliance." "This is a misunderstanding," Jack protested, raising his hands slowly. "We detected a serious flaw in your power systems. We were trying to help." "A likely story," Vrelnok said, his troops training their weapons on the humans. "Seize them and their devices. The Council will determine their fate." As they were roughly disarmed and their tools confiscated, Jack caught Nathan's eye. The xenobiologist's expression was grim. They both knew that what had started as a goodwill mission had just turned into a diplomatic nightmare. The 3 humans were marched out of the maintenance tunnels in restraints, watched by shocked Alliance personnel. Jack's mind raced, trying to think of a way to convince them of the danger facing the station, but he could tell from the hostile faces around them that no one was going to listen now. First contact had gone very wrong indeed. The cell was small but surprisingly comfortable for a prison. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the energy field that sealed the entrance. 3 days had passed since their arrest on Harmony 7, and they had been quickly transported to a high-security detention center on the Keldorian homeworld. "At least the temperature is nice," Nathan said from the adjacent cell. The xenobiologist had been making notes about their prison conditions, maintaining his scientific curiosity. despite their situation. That's because this facility is designed for Class C species, Olivia replied from the cell on Jack's other side. I overheard the guards talking. What's uncomfortable for us would be torture for most Alliance races. Jack nodded. The realization had been dawning on all of them over the past days. What humans considered normal environmental conditions were extreme for most of the Alliance species. Their prison cells, meant to be secure and austere, were actually quite comfortable by human standards. Any word from Earth? Jack asked. Their communication devices had been confiscated, and they had been allowed no contact with human authorities. Nothing yet, Olivia said. But I'm sure Governor Donovan is raising hell about this. Back on Earth, Governor Eliza Donovan was indeed raising hell. She stood before the emergency council, her face flushed with anger as she addressed the assembled officials. This is an outrage, she said, slamming her hand on the podium. Our first diplomatic team has been imprisoned on false charges. The Alliance has provided no evidence of wrongdoing, and they refuse to allow communication with our people. Admiral Paul Winters, commander of Earth's defense fleet, looked grim. We've positioned 3 vessels near the border of Alliance space. Not close enough to provoke, but enough to show we're serious. And if they don't release our people? Asked a council member. The Admiral's expression hardened. Then we may need to consider more direct options. Let's not jump to military action, Chief Engineer Sophia Martinez interjected. She had worked closely with Jack Morrison and knew his capabilities well. Jack wouldn't have interfered with their systems without good reason. Something must be wrong with that station. We've sent formal diplomatic protests, Governor Donovan said, and demanded an immediate hearing before the full Alliance Council. But we're getting pushback, particularly from the Keldorians. On the Keldorian homeworld, Jack was being led to an interrogation room. 2 guards flanked him, though they kept their distance, their body language betraying their unease at being close to a human. The room contained a simple table with chairs on opposite sides. A Keldorian official waited there, along with a smaller alien that Jack recognized as a Voltraxian. Sit, the Keldorian ordered. Jack complied, studying the Voltraxian curiously. Unlike most Alliance members he had encountered, this one seemed to be observing him with interest rather than fear. I am Interrogator Drekvan, the Keldorian stated. This is Scientist Learvex from Harmony 7. We have questions about your actions. Jack leaned forward. Before we start, I need to know if anyone has checked the coolant systems on level 17 of Harmony 7. There's a critical flaw that could lead to catastrophic failure. The Keldorian scales bristled with irritation. You are not here to make demands or continue your sabotage attempts. It's not sabotage, Jack insisted. I'm an engineer. I recognize the signs of system failure. Your sensors are calibrated incorrectly and missing the buildup of thermal energy in the secondary coolant loops. The Voltraxian, Learvex, tilted its head, 6 eyes blinking in sequence. How did you identify this issue so quickly? Our engineers have maintained that station for decades. Earth is a high-gravity, high-energy world, Jack explained. Our power systems run hotter and under more stress than anything in the Alliance. We've had to become experts at spotting potential failures before they happen. The interrogation continued for hours, but Jack noticed that Learvex was paying close attention to his technical explanations, occasionally making notes on a small device. Meanwhile, in her cell, Olivia was testing the limits of her confinement. The human weapons specialist had been systematically studying the prison's routines, the guards' patterns, and the cell's security features. These restraint fields, she muttered to herself. They're calibrated for Keldorian strength. She pressed, her hand against the energy barrier, feeling the resistance. With a grunt of effort, she pushed harder than she had before, and was surprised to feel the field give slightly. She quickly withdrew her hand when she heard guards approaching. This was valuable information, but not yet time to use it. In the adjacent cell, Nathan had been conducting his own observations. The xenobiologist had created a makeshift journal using materials from their meals. On it, he documented the physiological differences between humans and their captors. Fascinating, he whispered as he watched a Keldorian guard take 3 rest breaks during a single shift. Their stamina is significantly lower than ours despite their strength, and they seem to need more oxygen breaks in our atmosphere. Harmony 7. The situation was deteriorating. Small power outages had begun to plague the station, particularly in the eastern quadrant where Jack had first noticed the fluctuations. Engineer Kulara, the Voltaxian chief of station maintenance, frowned at the readings on her console. "This makes no sense," she said to her assistant. "The diagnostic systems show all parameters within normal range, but we keep having these failures." Her assistant, a young Voltraxian, hesitated before speaking. "What about what the human said, about the coolant systems?" "Nonsense," Kulara replied sharply. "Those Deathworlders were caught attempting to sabotage our systems. We can't trust anything they say." Just then, the lights in the engineering bay flickered, and several consoles went dark for a moment before power was restored. "That's the third time today," the assistant noted with concern. Kulara's antennae twitched with anxiety. "Run a level 2 diagnostic on the secondary coolant systems, just to be sure." Back on the Keldorian homeworld, Learvex was reviewing the data from Jack's interrogation. The Voltraxian scientist had requested access to the confiscated human tools and was studying them with great interest. What the humans had brought were not weapons or sabotage devices, but sophisticated diagnostic equipment. Running the humans' confiscated diagnostic tool against the backup data from Harmony 7, Learvex's eyes widened in alarm. The human had been right. The coolant system was showing clear signs of imminent failure, but the station's outdated sensors weren't calibrated to detect it. "This cannot be ignored," Learvex muttered, copying the data to a secure device. The scientist hesitated, aware that helping the humans could be seen as treasonous by some factions in the Alliance, particularly the militant anti-human group, led by General Krugar. Nevertheless, Learvex made a decision. Using a private channel, the Voltraxian sent a message to a moderate member of the Alliance Council, Prime Minister Zalvoth, attaching the alarming data. "The humans may have been right," the message concluded. "We need to reconsider their warnings, before it's too late." That night, as Jack lay on his bed staring at the ceiling of his cell, he heard a faint sound at the door. Looking up, he saw Learvex standing there, just beyond the energy barrier. "Engineer Morrison," the Voltraxian said quietly, "I believe you were correct about Harmony 7. The situation is worse than we thought." Jack sat up quickly. "Then you need to let us help." "It's not that simple," Learvex replied. "There are political complications. Some in the Alliance see humans as a threat regardless of your intentions. People will die if that station fails," Jack said firmly. Learvex's antennae drooped slightly. "I'm working to convince the Council. In the meantime, I'll try to get you better conditions and communication with your world." As the Voltraxian departed, Jack felt a mix of vindication and frustration. They had been right about the danger, but stuck in cells, they could do nothing to help. And somewhere out in space, a station full of innocent people was moving closer to disaster with each passing hour. Alarms blared throughout Harmony 7 as red emergency lights flashed in every corridor. Panicked aliens of various species rushed toward evacuation points. In the main engineering section, Engineer Kulara stared at the console in horror as system after system flashed warnings. "The primary coolant loop has failed completely," her assistant reported, voice trembling. "Secondary systems at 130% capacity and rising. We have maybe 6 hours before catastrophic reactor failure." Kulara's antennae drooped in defeat. "Begin emergency evacuation protocols. We need to get as many people off this station as possible." "What about trying to stabilize the reactor?" another engineer asked. "How?" Kulara snapped. "We've tried everything in the manual. Nothing is working." A voice from the doorway interrupted them. "Perhaps it's time to try something not in your manual." They turned to see Prime Minister Zalvoth, accompanied by Learvex. The Voltraxian scientist stepped forward, projecting data from a small device. "The human engineer was right," Learvex said. "I've analyzed his warnings using their diagnostic tools. The calibration error in our sensors prevented us from seeing the problem until it was too late." "So what do we do now?" Kulara asked. "We need the humans," Zalvoth said simply. Their world's harsh conditions have made them experts in managing these kinds of high-energy systems. The humans are imprisoned for attempted sabotage, one of the engineers protested. Perhaps we were too quick to judge, the Prime Minister replied. I've reviewed the security footage myself. They were trying to access the engineering systems, yes, but there's no evidence they intended harm. Kulara's professional pride battled with the reality of their situation. Even if we wanted their help, they're on the Keldorian homeworld. We don't have time to bring them here. Then we go to them, Zalvoth decided. On Earth, Director Kyle Bennett of the Earth Intelligence Agency entered the crisis room where Governor Donovan and Admiral Winters were discussing response options. We have new information, Bennett announced. Our sources in the Alliance report that Harmony 7 is experiencing critical system failures. The exact scenario Morrison warned about is happening. Admiral Winters leaned forward. Have they requested our assistance? Not officially, Bennett replied. There's political infighting. The anti-human faction led by General Krugar is blocking any formal request for help. This could be our opening, Governor Donovan said thoughtfully. We offer emergency assistance in exchange for our people. I've already prepared a response team, Admiral Winters said. Professor Alan Grant has been consulting with our engineers to develop solutions based on Morrison's initial observations. And if they refuse our help? Bennett asked. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Donovan spoke firmly. We help anyway, and we get our people back. Prepare the Special Operations Team. Major Rebecca Foster should lead it. In the Keldorian prison, Jack had fashioned a crude tool from his food tray. He had carefully bent and shaped one of the metal utensils they had been given, creating a small device that could potentially disrupt the energy field of their cells. He wasn't planning to escape, not yet, but he wanted to be prepared if necessary. Someone's coming, Olivia warned from her cell. Jack quickly hid his makeshift tool as a group of guards approached, led by an official they hadn't seen before. The alien was clearly from a high-gravity world like Earth with a stocky build and thick skin. I am Prime Minister Zalvoth, the alien announced. I need to speak with Engineer Morrison immediately. Jack stood as the energy field to his cell was lowered. What's happening? Harmony 7 is experiencing a severe system failure, Zalvoth explained. The situation is critical, just as you predicted. Jack felt a mix of vindication and concern. How bad is it? Catastrophic reactor failure is imminent. Thousands of lives are at risk. I can help, Jack said immediately. But I'll need my team, our tools, and full access to your systems. Zalvoth hesitated. The council is divided. Some still believe you may have caused this deliberately. That's ridiculous, Jack replied firmly. Why would we sabotage a station we were on? We were trying to prevent this very situation. Before Zalvoth could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the prison. The facility's lights flickered, then switched to emergency power. A guard rushed in. Prime Minister, we're receiving reports of an unidentified ship approaching the prison perimeter. Zalvoth looked alarmed. Human ship? Unknown, sir, but it's not responding to hails. In space, just outside Keldorian territory, Captain Laura Chen sat on the bridge of the Earth vessel Horizon. Her orders from Admiral Winters were clear. Position for potential extraction, but avoid hostile action unless necessary. Status report, she ordered. We're maintaining position outside their sensor range, her tactical officer replied. The Special Ops team is ready for deployment on your command. And the engineering team? Professor Grant and his people are prepared with all the equipment Morrison might need to address the station crisis. Laura nodded. Monitor all channels. The moment we get any indication our people are in danger, we move. Back in the prison, the political situation was deteriorating as quickly as the technical one. Warden Druzcott had arrived and was arguing fiercely with Prime Minister Zalvoth. These humans remain under Keldorian custody, the warden insisted. They cannot be released without proper authorization from General Krugar. There's no time for that, Zalvoth countered. Harmony 7 could fail within hours. That is not... My concern, Drazcott replied coldly. My duty is to keep these dangerous Deathworlders contained. Jack, still standing nearby with guards on either side, had heard enough. Your people are in danger, he said loudly. We can help. This isn't about politics anymore. The warden turned to Jack, his reptilian features twisted in distaste. Silence, human. You'll speak when spoken to. Nathan, watching from his cell, called out, If you're so concerned about security, let us work remotely. Give us a communication terminal. We can talk your engineers through the solution. Olivia added, Or let one of us go while keeping the others here as insurance. You'll see we're only trying to help. The prison shook suddenly as a distant explosion echoed through the facility. The lights flickered again. What was that? Zalvoth demanded. Unknown, a guard reported, checking a communication device. Something's happening in the eastern quadrant. What no one in the room knew was that Colonel Frank Miller and his Special Forces team had made landfall, creating a diversion on the far side of the prison. Their mission? Extract the human engineers if diplomatic solutions failed. In the confusion, Jack caught Olivia's eye and gave a subtle nod toward the guard nearest to her. She understood immediately. If things got worse, they might need to take matters into their own hands. The argument between the officials continued, growing more heated. Jack glanced at the time display on a nearby console. Hours were passing, and with each minute, Harmony 7 drew closer to disaster. Finally, Zalvoth slammed his fist down. Enough. By the authority of the Prime Minister's office, I am temporarily taking custody of these humans. They will be transferred to my ship immediately. This is an outrage, the warden sputtered. General Krugar will hear of this. Then let him hear, Zalvoth replied. I'd rather face his anger than be responsible for thousands of deaths because of pride and prejudice against humans. As they were being led from the detention area, Jack whispered to Nathan, This is our chance. Whatever happens, we need to get to Harmony 7 and help. Nathan nodded grimly. Let's just hope we're not too late. Outside the prison, the night sky was lit by distant explosions as Earth's special forces continued their diversionary tactics. A storm was brewing, both literally in the Keldorian atmosphere and figuratively in the halls of Galactic Alliance power. And caught in the middle were three humans whose only crime had been trying to help. The transport ship shuddered as it accelerated away from the Keldorian prison world. Jack, Olivia, and Nathan sat in a secured compartment, accompanied by Prime Minister Zalvoth and Lirvex. Their restraints had been removed, but two guards still watched them carefully. We're transmitting the latest data from Harmony 7, Lirvex said, projecting holographic images of the station's systems. The situation has worsened. Multiple sectors have lost life support. Jack studied the data intently. The cooling system failure has cascaded into the power grid. The whole network is becoming unstable. Can you fix it? Zalvoth asked directly. Possibly, Jack replied. But we need our equipment and direct access to the main reactor control systems. Your confiscated tools are being brought on board, Zalvoth assured him. But I must warn you, there will be resistance to your presence on the station. Nathan looked up from the data. You mean General Krugar's faction? Zalvoth's expression darkened. Yes. The general has been using fear of humans to gain political power. Your success would undermine his position. Politics, Olivia muttered. People are dying and they're worried about politics. The ship lurched suddenly, alarms blaring throughout the vessel. One of the guards rushed to a communication panel. Prime Minister, we're being pursued by Keldorian military vessels. They're demanding we return the prisoners immediately. Zalvoth stood, his stocky frame tense. Increase speed. Contact Alliance Command and inform them of our situation. Jack exchanged glances with his teammates. The situation was escalating from a rescue mission to a potential interspecies conflict. There might be another option, Jack said, drawing everyone's attention. Our people are likely nearby. If we could contact them, they could provide escort. You think Earth forces are in Keldorian space? Zalvoth asked sharply. Wouldn't you be? Olivia countered. If your people were imprisoned unjustly? After a moment of consideration, Zalvoth nodded. Open a general broadcast channel. Let engineer Morrison sent a message. Meanwhile, on the Earth vessel horizon, Captain Laura Chen received an urgent alert from her communications officer. Captain, we're picking up a broadcast on an open frequency. It's Commander Morrison. Put it through, Laura ordered, leaning forward in her command chair. Jack's voice came through the ship's speakers. This is Commander Jack Morrison of Earth to any Earth vessels in range. We are aboard an Alliance transport with Prime Minister Zalvoth en route to Harmony 7 to address a critical station failure. We are being pursued by hostile forces. Request immediate assistance. Laura didn't hesitate. Set intercept course, maximum speed. Inform Colonel Miller's team to abort their ground mission and prepare for extraction from our coordinates. The Horizon moved swiftly, its engines pushing to full capacity as it headed toward the source of the transmission. Back on the Alliance transport, Jack worked quickly with the data Learvex provided, developing a plan to address the station crisis. The main problem is the calibration error in the coolant system, he explained. The sensors are set for normal Alliance world parameters, but the actual energy output of the reactor is running much hotter, closer to Earth norms. Can it be fixed remotely? Zalvoth asked. Jack shook his head. Not completely. We need to manually reset the control systems and then implement a new coolant circulation pattern. It will require physical access to the reactor core. That area will be flooded with radiation, Learvex warned. No Alliance species could survive exposure long enough to make those changes. We can, Olivia said simply. Humans evolved with higher background radiation than most Alliance worlds. Our cellular repair mechanisms are more robust. Nathan nodded. What would be lethal to you is merely dangerous to us. With proper precautions, we could survive long enough to implement the fix. The Alliance officials looked at the humans with new understanding. What they had feared as dangerous Deathworlder traits were now potential salvation. The ship shook violently as weapons fire struck its shields. They're gaining on us, the pilot reported. Shields at 60%. Just as the situation seemed, dire space around them lit up with new energy signatures. The horizon appeared alongside them, positioning itself between the Alliance transport and the pursuing Keldorian vessels. This is Captain Laura Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon, a new voice announced over the communication system. We are providing escort to this transport on humanitarian grounds. Any further hostile action will be met with appropriate response. For tense moments, everyone waited to see if the Keldorians would press their attack. Finally, the pursuing ships reduced speed, maintaining distance but no longer firing. They're backing off, Laura reported. But they're still following. We need to reach Harmony 7 as quickly as possible, Jack urged. Every minute counts. The journey to the station was tense but uneventful after the Earthship's intervention. As they approached Harmony 7, the extent of the crisis became visibly apparent. Sections of the massive station were dark, and emergency vessels swarmed around it, evacuating personnel. Engineer Kulara met them at the docking bay, her usual professional, composure shattered by stress and lack of sleep. The reactor containment system is at critical levels, she reported without preamble. We've evacuated 60% of the station's population, but there are still thousands aboard who can't leave yet. Jack immediately took charge. Take us to the main engineering control room. We need to start implementing our solution immediately. As they rushed through the corridors, they passed scenes of chaos. Alliance citizens from various species huddled in evacuation zones, while engineering teams fought to maintain basic life support. In the control room, Jack quickly connected his diagnostic tools to the station's systems. It's worse than we thought. The coolant system isn't just miscalibrated. Several key components have failed completely. Can you still fix it? Kulara asked, desperation in her voice. Jack looked at Olivia and Nathan, who nodded their agreement. Yes, but we'll need to do something more drastic. We need to manually override the reactor core's emergency systems and reset the entire power grid. That's suicide, one of the Alliance engineers protested. The radiation levels in the core, access tunnels are lethal. For you, maybe, Olivia said. But we're Deathworlders, remember, we can handle it. Jack quickly outlined his plan. Olivia and I will access the core. Nathan will guide us from here and coordinate with the station. Systems. We'll need environmental suits for basic protection. I'm going with you, Lirvex said suddenly. I know the station systems better than anyone. The radiation, Jack began. I understand the risk, the Voltraxian interrupted, but you'll need a guide. As they prepared for the dangerous mission, alarms throughout the station intensified. A new voice came over the emergency system. Attention all personnel. This is General Krugar. By authority of the Military Council, I am assuming command of this emergency. All humans are to be detained immediately as suspected saboteurs. Kulara looked at the humans, then at Prime Minister Zalvoth. What do we do? We save this station, Zalvoth said firmly. Politics can wait. Jack checked his equipment last time, then looked at his team. Ready? Olivia nodded grimly. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do. The reactor access corridor stretched before them, bathed in pulsing red emergency lights. Jack and Olivia stood at the entrance, dressed in the best protective suits the station could provide. Behind them, Lirvex made final adjustments to their equipment. These suits weren't designed for your physiology, the Voltraxian scientist explained. They'll provide some protection, but not as much as they would for our species. How long do we have? Jack asked, checking the radiation meter on his wrist. For an Alliance citizen, perhaps 30 seconds before permanent damage. For humans. Lirvex hesitated. Based on what I understand of your biology, maybe 5 minutes, but that's just a guess. Jack nodded grimly. Then we'll have to work fast. Through their communication devices, they heard Nathan's voice from the control room. I'm patched into the station systems. The reactor's containment field is at 17% and falling. You need to get to the main coolant control panel and reset the system before it fails completely. Understood, Jack replied. He turned to Olivia. Ready? She gave a tense smile. Let's do this. The heavy radiation doors slid open and immediately their meters began to climb. The corridor beyond was hot, filled with steam from ruptured coolant lines. They moved forward quickly, Lirvex guiding them through the communication system. Take the second left, then straight ahead to the central chamber. In the control room, Nathan worked frantically alongside Kulara and the Alliance engineers. His fingers flew across the unfamiliar console as he implemented Jack's plan. We need to prepare for the power reset, he instructed. When they restart the coolant system, we'll have approximately 20 seconds to recalibrate the power grid before the reaction goes critical. Prime Minister Zalvoth stood nearby, communicating with evacuation coordinators. How many people are still on board? He asked a frantic station manager. Approximately 3,000, sir. The evacuation ships can't keep up. Suddenly, the control room doors slid open. General Krugar entered, flanked by armed security officers. His reptilian face was set in a harsh expression. This operation is now under military control, he announced. The humans are to be detained, immediately. Nathan turned from his console. They're in the reactor core right now trying to save your station. If you interrupt them, everyone dies. More human lies, the general sneered. Your kind engineered this crisis to force your way into the Alliance. Prime Minister Zalvoth stepped forward. That's enough, General. I've seen the evidence myself. The humans warned us about this flaw days ago. We ignored them. In the reactor corridor, Jack and Olivia pushed forward through increasingly difficult conditions. The heat was intense, and the radiation meters on their wrists climbed steadily into the danger zone. 2 more minutes at this exposure and we'll start seeing radiation sickness, Olivia noted clinically, her military training helping her stay focused. We're almost there, Jack replied, his breath coming in short gasps as the heat and radiation sapped his strength. They reached the central chamber, where the main coolant control systems were located. The room was filled with steam, and the walls themselves seemed to vibrate with the unstable energy of the failing reactor. I see the control panel, Jack said, moving toward a bank of equipment on the far wall. It's in worse shape than I thought. What do we need to do? Olivia asked, wiping sweat from her face inside her helmet. The primary coolant pumps have failed completely, Jack explained as he examined the system. We need to manually reconfigure the backup system to take over. But first, we have to reset the calibration sensors. In the control room, the confrontation between the Alliance officials had reached a tense stalemate. Nathan ignored the political drama, focusing entirely on the technical readouts from the reactor. "Jack, Olivia, your radiation exposure is reaching critical levels," he warned. "You have maybe 3 minutes before you need to get out of there." "Understood," Jack's voice came back, strained but determined. Beginning the recalibration sequence. Now. Captain Laura Chen and her crew watched the situation from the horizon. They had taken up position near the station, ready to assist with evacuations if necessary. "Any update from Commander Morrison's team?" Laura asked her communications officer. "They're in the reactor core now, Captain, attempting emergency repairs." Laura nodded, her face tight with concern. "Keep our transporters locked on their signals. If things go bad, we pull them out immediately, regardless of the diplomatic consequences." Inside the reactor chamber, Jack worked feverishly at the control panel. His hands were starting to shake, an early symptom of radiation exposure. Beside him, Olivia was connecting bypass circuits, rerouting power to the backup coolant systems. "Almost got it," Jack said, his voice growing weaker. "One more sequence." Olivia stumbled suddenly, catching herself against the wall. "Jack, I'm starting to feel the radiation effects. Vision's blurring." "Just a little longer," he urged, making the final adjustments. "Nathan, prepare for the system reset. On my mark." In the control room, Nathan had the station's main power grid displayed, across 3 monitors. "Ready when you are, Jack." The general had fallen silent, watching the humans work with a mixture of suspicion and growing amazement. "Now," Jack called. Nathan executed the reset sequence. For a heart-stopping moment, the entire station went dark. Emergency lights flickered, and then slowly, the main power returned. "Coolant flow restored," Nathan announced, watching the readouts with intense focus. Temperature dropping in the reactor core, containment field stabilizing. A ragged cheer went up from the Alliance engineers. Quilara stared at the displays in disbelief. "They did it," she whispered. "They actually did it. Jack, Olivia, get out of there now," Nathan ordered. "Your radiation exposure is beyond safe limits." In the reactor chamber, Jack and Olivia were already making their way back, supporting each other as radiation sickness began to take effect. Their vision was tunneling, muscles weakening with each step. "We're not going to make it to the exit," Olivia said, stumbling again. "Just a little further," Jack insisted, though he could barely stand himself. Suddenly, they heard the sound of heavy footsteps ahead. Through the steam, they saw figures approaching. Alliance security personnel in radiation suits, led by none other than General Krugar himself. Without a word, the general and his officers moved forward, lifting the weakened humans and carrying them toward the exit. Despite his earlier hostility, the general's actions were efficient and careful. Once outside the radiation zone, medical teams rushed forward. The humans were quickly placed on stretchers and given emergency treatment for radiation exposure. As eerie, Jack drifted in and out of consciousness. He heard the general speaking to Prime Minister Zalvoth. "I was wrong about them," Krugar admitted reluctantly. "No Alliance species would have survived that radiation long enough to complete the repairs." "Perhaps that is why we need them in the Alliance," Zalvoth replied. "Their different perspective, their adaptations to their harsh world. These are not threats, but assets." 1 week later, Jack stood at a viewport on the Earth vessel horizon, watching as repair teams worked on the exterior of Harmony 7. He was still weak from radiation sickness, but the advanced medical treatment from both human and Alliance doctors had saved him and Olivia from permanent damage. Nathan joined him at the window. "The Alliance Council is meeting today to discuss Earth's membership application. Word is they're fast-tracking it." Jack smiled tiredly. "Nothing like nearly dying to break the ice." "They're calling us heroes now," Nathan said. "The same people who called us dangerous Deathworlders a week ago." "We are dangerous," Jack replied thoughtfully. "But that doesn't mean we can't also Be helpers. Maybe that's our place in the galaxy, doing the things others can't because of our evolutionary history. The ship's communication system activated, and Captain Chen's voice came through. Commander Morrison, you have visitors. The Alliance delegation has arrived. When they entered the conference room, they found not only Prime Minister Zalvoth and Learvex, but also General Krugar and several other high-ranking Alliance officials. Engineer Morrison, Zalvoth began formally. On behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I am here to extend our deepest gratitude for your actions and to personally apologize for your treatment. Thank you, Prime Minister, Jack replied. We're just glad we could help. General Krugar stepped forward. To everyone's surprise, he gave a formal military bow to the humans. I have spent my career protecting the Alliance from threats, he said stiffly. I failed to recognize that different does not mean dangerous, or rather, that dangerous does not mean hostile. Earth's ability to produce people who can survive conditions that would kill any of us. This is a strength the Alliance needs. The formal meeting continued. Jack looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Earth was just one small planet in a vast galaxy, but perhaps its harsh conditions had prepared humanity for something greater, a unique role in a community of worlds where each species contributed its own evolutionary gifts. The path ahead would not be easy. Centuries of isolation had left both humans and the Alliance with much to learn about each other. But a start had been made, forged in crisis and sealed with mutual respect. For the first time, the term Deathworlder was spoken, not with fear but with appreciation.